If you have ever loved someone so much that you endure silent disrespect just to protect peace, then maybe you'll understand what I'm about to share. My name is Amaka Okoye. I am 34 years old, married to a man I thought God had picked for me, Obina. We met in the most unusual way. I was selling fabrics in Onitsha main market when he mistakenly bumped into my table and tore 2 yards of lace with his belt buckle. He was so apologetic, and his smile, it melted all my anger. 1 year later, I was his wife, and for a while, everything felt like a dream, a peaceful, promising dream, until his mother moved in. Her name was Mama Grace, and I respected her from day one. I cooked for her, I served her food before my husband. I even greeted her with 2 hands and bent knees like I was trained to do. I washed her clothes. I was practically her maid. I was doing everything within my power to please her and probably be her favorite daughter-in-law. I wanted to be a perfect daughter. I did everything humanly possible to see that I pleased her. Most times, I asked myself why I was doing all that for her, because it wasn't like my husband, her son, was rich. But then I couldn't help it. I did things for her I wouldn't do for my own mother. But instead, all this led to disrespect and a letdown. It started gradually, the disrespect. First, it was the facial expressions whenever I entered the room. Then came the backhand compliments. You're beautiful, but this your stomach is flat like a groundnut sack. You sure say you dey eat well? Can this kind of stomach carry a child at all? Still, I endured. I wanted to be the perfect daughter-in-law. Every month, I made sure to send food to our house in the village. Dry fish, beans, rice, palm oil. Sometimes even a cooler of fried chicken during festive seasons. I didn't have much, but I gave from the little I had. Obina never asked me to do it. I just wanted to show love, to be accepted. But sometimes, no matter how sweet your offering is, it will taste bitter in the mouth of someone who never liked you to begin with. 3 years into our marriage, something strange started happening. Obina changed. He no longer touched me like before. He would avoid eye contact during dinner. When I spoke, he would sigh, and our once joyful bedroom became a cemetery of silence. I asked him one night, tears pooling in my eyes, Obina, have I done something wrong? He stood up, walked to the window and said, Amaka, this marriage is choking me. I need space. Space for what? I sat in bed confused. Is this about a child? Is that what is eating you up? He turned sharply and said, that's part of it. We've been married for 3 years, no child. My mates already have 2, 3. People are asking questions. Even Mama is worried. But we agreed not to rush, Obina. You said children will come when God wills. That was then. Now I'm not sure you can even conceive. Maybe you've been hiding something from me. That word struck me like thunder. Hiding? What was he implying? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every scene, every conversation. What had changed? Who had whispered poison into his ears? The next day, I called Mama Grace, gently and respectfully. Mama, good morning, ma. How is your body? I just wanted to check on you. She coughed dramatically on the phone. My daughter, I'm managing. I just manage this old body. How is my son? He's fine. We've not been seeing eye to eye lately. I don't know what I did. There was silence on the other end. Then she said something that made my heart sink. Amaka, my dear, some women are just unlucky. I warned my son not to marry a barren woman, but he said love will provide, and love cannot provide children. Barren, that word again, coming from her lips like a curse. Mama, I said softly, trying to hold my tears. Have I ever disrespected you? Have I ever given you a reason to speak about me like this? I speak truth. You are feeding me, Amaka, but you are starving my lineage. It's only God that knows what you are hiding. I ended the call and dropped the phone on the floor. So this was it. All this time, all the love I had been pouring was being poured into a basket. I decided to visit the hospital alone. I needed answers. I had done tests before, but maybe something had changed. The doctor was kind. After the test, he invited me in. Madam Amaka, your womb is healthy, your eggs are fine, hormones are normal. But my heart stopped. But what, doctor? He hesitated. Do you know if your husband has done any fertility test? I shook my head slowly. He sighed. Because from what I'm seeing, you should have conceived. It may be time to check both sides. My knees nearly gave out. Obinna had never tested himself. He always assumed the fault was mine, and his mother, she believed it too. But something deeper told me they knew. They both knew. That night, I waited for him to come home. When he entered, smelling of a strange perfume, I didn't bother asking where he had been. I simply said, Obinna, let's go for a fertility test together. He flared up. So you are now insulting my manhood? No, I just want answers, for both our sakes. He grabbed his car keys and left, and didn't return till next morning. I sat on my bed wiping my tears, and in that moment I realized something powerful. The worst kind of loneliness is the one you feel inside your own marriage. Weeks passed. Then one day, I received a call from Mama Grace. Her voice was frantic. Amaka, come quickly to the village. Obinna is here. He's doing something dangerous. Please, my daughter, come and save your husband. I rushed to the bus park, my heart pounding because I didn't know what to expect. But nothing, absolutely nothing could have prepared me for what I saw when I arrived. Obinna was kneeling in front of a shrine with another woman kneeling beside him. And Mama Grace was standing behind them, smiling. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would have sworn it was a scene from a bad Bollywood movie. But no, it was real. It was my life unraveling in real time. There he was, Obinna, the man I married in church, the man who once kissed my forehead and promised me forever, kneeling half naked beside a woman dressed in red wrapper and white chalk across her forehead before a village shrine. A clay pot smoked heavily in front of them, and a goat lay tied to a pole beside the priest. And Mama Grace stood behind them, beaming, smiling like her son finally had been rescued from a life of torment. I stood frozen at the edge of the gathering, my slippers dusty, my heart heavier than anything I had ever carried. I could hear my blood thudding in my ears. Mama, I finally said, what is this? She turned slowly. Her smile did not fade. You came quickly, she said, like she had invited me to a naming ceremony. It's better you're here to see it with your own eyes, oh. Obinna wouldn't even meet my gaze. His eyes were fixated on the flames. The priest began chanting in Igbo, calling on the gods of fertility and purity, demanding they bless the union before him. Union? I staggered forward. What union, Mama? The woman beside Obinna shifted and looked at me. No shame, no apology, just calm boldness. I recognized her, Ebere, a widow from the next village. She once greeted me in her compound with forced warmth. Now she was sitting next to my husband like she owned half of him. You're desecrating your marriage, Obinna, I said, with my voice trembling. You're my husband. We haven't divorced. What are you doing here? Why are you kneeling before a shrine with another woman? Obinna finally looked at me, and I wish he hadn't, because there was no remorse in his eyes, no struggle and no hesitation. Amaka, he said flatly, I need a child, and I'm tired of pretending. I looked at him in shock. Is this how you want to resolve it? By dragging me here to witness this madness? Mama Grace stepped in. My son needs an heir, a woman who can give him one. You've had 3 years and nothing. I warned him not to marry you, but he insisted. Now he's correcting the mistake. Mistake? I laughed, a painful broken laugh that echoed around the compound. Mama, after all the food I sent you every month, do you know how many times I starved just to send you food, Mama? And this is how you repay me? Her face darkened. You were feeding me, but you were starving my bloodline. Amaka, I cannot eat love. I want a grandchild before I die. I turned to Obinna, desperate for a flicker of hope from the man I once loved. What happened to us? You never even agreed to go for a test. Why haven't you checked yourself? I did mine. The doctor said I was fine. He snorted. That's what they always say, always ready to push the blame. I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope I had been carrying. This is your test result, Obinna. I went behind your back. I paid for it. You did the sperm analysis at the hospital 3 months ago when you thought it was a general blood screening. I threw it at his feet. Mama Grace hissed. What nonsense is this? Obinna opened the envelope with shaking fingers. I saw it, the flicker just for a moment. Fear. He scanned the paper, his lips moving slowly, then silence. No sperm count. I said it for him. 0 motility. The doctor said you've probably had it since you were young. Mama Grace rushed forward and grabbed the paper. This is a lie. This is witchcraft. You forged this. I didn't. I knew you would never accept it, so I brought a copy with the hospital seal and doctor's signature. Obinna's eyes were wide now. He grabbed the envelope and tore it. So you think this changes anything? Yes, I said. It changes everything. You accused me, humiliated me, and dragged me to witness this evil. You called me barren, but I was never the problem. The shrine priest paused his chant. Madam, he said to me, leave this place. You are not part of the ritual. Oh, I'm not. I laughed bitterly. Let me leave you to your foolishness. When the gods you are calling finally descend with the truth, may they also see the hands that twisted it. I turned and I walked away, each step heavier than the last. 2 weeks passed. There was silence. Obinna didn't call. Mama Grace also went radio silent, and I sat in my father's house in Oka, humiliated and torn apart. Then the knock came. It was Iberi, drenched in tears, with her hands trembling and her belly flat. I lost the baby, she said. I blinked. What baby? The one they said I was carrying for Obinna. I lied, Emeka. I was never pregnant. Mama Grace paid me to say I was. I needed money. My son was sick. I didn't know it would go this far. I stared at her in disbelief. She knelt down and apologized. I'm sorry, please. Obinna needs help. He has been sick since the day of the ritual. He can't speak anymore. He just stares into space and trembles at night. A cold shiver ran through me. I remembered the priest's warning. The gods will see the hands that twisted the truth. Mama Grace had fed a lie. Obinna swallowed it, and now they were both choking on the consequences. I should have felt joy and vindication, but all I felt was a deep, sorrowful ache. Everything I had built was reduced to ashes by the very people I once called family. My phone rang. It was the hospital. Mrs. Samako Okoye, the nurse said, Yes? There's something urgent you need to know. You may want to come in person. It is concerning your last test results. I froze. Which test results? The one you did 3 months ago. There was a mix-up, and you may not be as okay as we thought. The hospital line went dead, but the silence it left behind echoed louder than any scream. I stood in my father's compound, staring blankly at my phone as if it could somehow reverse time. There was a mix-up, and I may not be as okay as they thought. That sentence looped in my mind like a curse. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to assume, but my body was trembling. When I got to the hospital the next morning, the nurse avoided eye contact. Doctor is expecting you, she said softly, leading me to a room I had visited 3 months ago when I thought I was only doing a routine check. Dr. Edwin walked in, his eyes gentle. He sat opposite me, folded his hands and exhaled. Mrs. Okoye, he began. First, I want to apologize. We pride ourselves on accuracy, but sometimes human error slips in. Your initial results were accidentally switched with another patient. I swallowed hard. What does that mean for me, doctor? It means we missed something. You have fibroids, quite large ones. They are growing near your fallopian tubes and may have blocked fertilization. It's the reason you haven't conceived yet. I covered my mouth as the room spinned. All this time? You told me I was fine. I believed you were, he said, until we audited recent results and saw the error. I felt numb. So, I'm the one who's barren? No, he said firmly. You're not barren.
That word is cruel and unscientific. You have a medical condition, one that we can manage. You can still very much conceive, but we must treat it aggressively and early. I nodded slowly, tears spilling before I could stop them. It was strange how pain could feel both old and new at the same time. How could it find a home in the same heart that has already been broken? I left the hospital that day feeling like a woman stripped bare. No more pretense, no more accusations or defenses, just the raw, painful truth. But something else happened to me that afternoon. I found clarity. I realized I had spent years trying to win over a family that would never see me. I gave love where there was contempt, and I gave peace to those who thrived in chaos. I tried to be a good daughter-in-law, a nurse, a cook, a mediator, all for a man who never chose me back. And for what? So they could build a shrine behind my back? So they could shame me publicly while hiding their own lies? 2 days later, I returned to our marital home. I didn't even knock, I just walked in. Mama Grace was sitting in the living room, fanning herself with a folded newspaper. She froze when she saw me. "So you are back?" she asked with a stiff voice. I ignored her and went straight to the bedroom. Obinna was there, sitting on the edge of the bed. His eyes, once sharp, were now hollow, and a thin drool slid from the side of his mouth. His hand trembled slightly. "Amaka," he muttered, barely inaudible. He looked like a man who had touched something too dark to wash up. I sat opposite him calmly. "Your silence used to hurt me," I said. "Now I understand it. You were never strong enough to love someone fully. You were never brave enough to protect me." He blinked but said nothing. "I came to say this to your face, Obinna. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace, real peace. And you are not worth hating anymore." Mama Grace appeared at the door. "You think your forgiveness can change anything?" she barked. "You think you can come here and pretend like Mama? I don't need to pretend," I said, cutting her off halfway. "But you do, Mama. You need to pretend that your son is still okay. You need to pretend you didn't plant this disaster with your own hands. Keep pretending, Mama. As for me, I'm done." I stood up, dropped the house key on the table and walked away. Weeks turned into months. I focused on healing, body, mind and soul. I started fibroid treatment with a specialist in Enugu. I returned to my small boutique and expanded into wholesale. I built myself up brick by brick, breath by breath. One afternoon, I got a message from Facebook. It was from Ebere. "Mama Grace is sick. She keeps calling your name in her sleep. Obinna barely talks. Please, if you have any forgiveness left, they need help." And this was the second time I had received the same messages from where since I left them. I stared at the message for a long time, and I did something strange which most women wouldn't do. I decided to settle this once and for all. I packed a small bag and booked a night bus to the village, not to fight nor shout, but to see with my own eyes the people who once tried to destroy me. When I arrived the next morning, the compound felt like a ghost town. The paint was peeling. The flowers I once planted were dead. Even the dogs looked hungry. I stepped into the house, and what I saw broke something inside me. Mama Grace was lying on a mat, frail and thin, muttering to herself. Her once sharp tongue now babbled nonsense. Her wrappers were stained and her eyes were empty. Obinna was seated by the wall, rocking back and forth like a child. He stared at me, but I didn't think he recognized me. There was drool on his chin and his fingers wouldn't stop trembling. The priest at the shrine said the gods would expose the hands that twisted the truth and probably lay curses on them, which resulted in their present condition. Now I believed him. I knelt beside them quietly, without pride or anger, and I said it out loud so that the walls could hear. "I forgive you." Mama Grace looked up confused, and Obinna blinked. "I hold nothing against you. I don't hate you. I came to pray for you." And there in that same room where they once whispered evil, I closed my eyes and I prayed. I asked God to heal them, to be merciful to them, and then I stood up, picked up my bag and walked away. I didn't look back. A few months later, I received the good news. After a successful treatment procedure, the doctor handed me a letter. "Your body is healing remarkably. Based on your response, There's every possibility of a natural conception within a year. Keep believing. And just like that, hope bloomed again, but this time it bloomed for just me and me alone. I didn't return to my father's house this time. Ever since I left my husband's house, I had been in my father's house at the village, but I felt it was pointless tying myself down there. I needed to relocate or maybe move and start life afresh. So I closed down my boutique business and rented a small apartment in Ababa on the outskirts of Enugu. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom flat where no one knew me as Obina's wife or Mama Grace's disappointment. I started therapy. I joined a women's support group. I even began attending early morning mass again, not because I needed a miracle, but because I needed peace. 3 months into my fibroid treatment, something unexpected happened. During one of our women's group medical outreach, I met someone. His name was Dr. Ndubisi, a visiting fertility consultant from Abuja who volunteered for rural health drives. He was gentle, in his late 40s, divorced, well-spoken. We didn't flirt, we didn't exchange numbers. We just talked like two people who had seen sorrow and learned how to sit with it. We connected emotionally and physically. The second time we met, he was the one to say it. You don't need fixing, Amaka. You need someone who won't break your heart any further. It wasn't love at first sight. It was healing in slow motion. We became a friend, then a confidant. Then a few months later, after I completed my surgery and the doctor gave me clearance to try conception, we became lovers. It wasn't planned. It wasn't rushed. It was honest. It was a relationship which flowed on a natural term with no benefits attached. I began to open up my past to him and confide more deeper, opening up about my hidden scars and what I have been through and how I'm starting over. I told him everything about Obina, Mama Grace and the betrayer, and how he took a new wife behind my back at the shrine. How he took an oath with another woman right there in front of me. He listened without judgment. But then he consoled me and asked me to let the past be, and I listened because he was everything I couldn't find in Obina. He was smart, rich, educated and well-mannered, and there was something charming about him. He felt very right and I found peace in him. Sometimes, love doesn't come wrapped in roses. Sometimes it arrives in silence, in the steady presence of someone who doesn't rush your wounds, but waits for you to feel safe enough to bloom. That was Dr. Ndubisi. Few months later, I found out I was pregnant. I thought I would cry out of fear or anxiety. My heart couldn't contain the joy that came with this discovery. So finally, my womb could carry a baby. I sat on my bed, one hand on my belly, the other over my mouth, and I wept for joy. I was going to be a mother. Me, Amaka, the woman they once called barren, the woman they dragged to a shrine, the woman who sent food every night to a mother-in-law who served her scorn in return. And this time, it wasn't a miracle from a man who never protected me. It was a child formed from healing, from peace, from love that didn't need to perform to be accepted. When Ndubisi found out, he was silent for a moment. Then he placed both hands on my shoulder, looked me squarely in the eye and said, Amaka, if you let me, I want to do this life with you. It wasn't a fancy proposal. There was no ring in a glass of wine, just raw, honest emotion. 2 months later, we had a traditional wedding in my father's compound in Oka. It rained that day, but somehow it felt like a blessing. 3 weeks after that, we stood before God in a small white wedding, surrounded by people who actually prayed for us, not against us. Ndubisi became not just my husband, but my protector, my cheerleader and my peace. When it was time, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl. We named her Ebube Chukwu, meaning the glory of God. One evening, as I rocked her to sleep, I caught myself whispering a truth I knew was not just mine, but every woman's. One thing I keep thanking God for is that I didn't dwell in my past. I allowed myself to heal. I allowed myself to move on and took my treatment seriously. I chose myself when no one else did. To any woman who has ever found herself in this kind of situation, please, I beg you, allow yourself to heal. This is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Stop dwelling on people who do not deserve your love. Stop holding on to pain that isn't serving you. The better man will come, the better family will come, and when they do, they will never take you for granted. They will see your value. They will love you loudly and they will honor your heart.
And you will finally know what it means to be chosen, not out of pity, not out of desperation, but because you are enough and always have been. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to subscribe and share with your loved ones. See you in the next video. Bye.
Once upon a time, in a small town called Ogwashi, there lived a woman named Ngozi, whose life was known by one word: barren. For 15 long years, she woke up each day to the same eyes watching her, same whispers behind her back, and same questions that burned deeper than fire. Still no child? Even her silence had become a topic of gossip. Her husband Chika loved her deeply, but love can never cover shame in a place where a woman without a child is seen as worthless. Ngozi learned to smile through the pain, but there were days when the pain was too heavy. One fateful morning, as the sun rose lazily over Ogwashi, Ngozi tied her wrapper tightly and walked to the small market to buy tomatoes. Her ears caught the sound of laughter. She knew the voices. It was her neighbors, Mama Funanya and Mama Chuks. They didn't see her as she approached the store. Can you imagine? Mama Funanya said, laughing. This morning, I saw Ngozi sweeping her compound as if sweeping would bring a child. Mama Chuks laughed louder. Her brood is pregnant since her womb is not. And they laughed loudly. Ngozi froze. Her heart dropped. She stood there, her tomato slipping from her hands. And her husband, Mama Chuks continued, lowering her voice, still stays with her. Some men have patience, so if it were my brother, he would have married a second wife long ago. They turned and saw Ngozi standing there. Their laughter stopped, but the damage was done. Ngozi's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. She walked away fast, her chest heavy and her mind spinning. When she got home, she didn't speak to Chika. She didn't eat and she didn't rest. That night, when Chika was asleep, Ngozi knelt down by the small wooden bed, her knees on the cold floor, her face buried in her hands. She wept, the kind of weeping that only God understands. God, haven't I waited enough? Haven't I served you enough? Don't you hear them mock me? Don't you see my shame? She sobbed harder, her chest heaving. You said there shall be no barren in the land. You said children are a gift from me. Where's my gift, Lord? Where's my child? Her tears soaked the floor. Somewhere between weeping and silence, she fell asleep. In her sleep, she saw a vision. An old woman dressed in white, walking through a field. In her hands, a newborn baby, wrapped in blue clothes. The old woman walked to Ngozi, smiling and said, "Your waiting is over." She handed the baby to Ngozi, and as Ngozi took the child, she woke up. Her heart was racing. She touched her stomach. She shook Chika awake. "Husband, I've seen it. I've seen my child." Chika looked at her confused. "What are you seeing?" She told him everything. He held her close, and for the first time in years she felt peace. But not everyone rejoiced. Amachi, Ngozi's cousin, lived with them. She heard the story. She saw the joy, but in her heart, anger grew. Why should Ngozi be blessed? Why not her? Amachi had a friend called Nneka, a woman known for her sharp tongue and dangerous mind. One evening, as the moon hung low, Amachi sat with Nneka under the mango tree. "I don't understand why God favors her," Amachi said with bitterness in her voice. Nneka smiled slyly. "It's because you sit and watch, that's why." "What do you mean?" "You sit there, serving her, helping her, while she shines, you are in her shadow." Amachi frowned. "Make her feel your pain," Nneka whispered. "Let her know what it means to lose." From that night, Amachi's heart became darker. She smiled during the day, helped Ngozi with chores, even prayed with her, but inside she waited for the right moment. Months later, Ngozi conceived, her belly grew and the village celebrated, and Amachi watched. One night, as Ngozi rested, Amarachi sat outside with Nneka again. "She's pregnant," Amarachi said. Nneka lit her lantern and said to her, "Then prepare, her joy must not last." And so while Ngozi sang songs of praise, dreaming of her baby boy, another song was being sung behind her, a song of envy, jealousy, and a plan that would turn her joy into sorrow. A full year had passed since Ngozi gave birth to Ifeanyi, yet each day felt like a fresh dream. She often sat and stared at him, his small hands, his gentle breathing, the way he smiled at her, and she would whisper, "God, I thank you. I will protect him with my life." Her neighbors had stopped mocking her, but they still watched her, some with admiration, others with envy. But those whose envy burned the deepest was inside her home, Amarachi. She had waited for Ngozi's joy to fade, but instead it grew brighter. Chika adored his wife. Ifeanyi was the jewel of the house. People came to greet Ngozi, bringing gifts, blessing her, and Amarachi, still in the background, still forgotten, still in the shadow. Each day, as she helped fetch water, swept the compound, or carried Ifeanyi, her heart grew closer. It was Nneka who kept her anger alive. "You are still there, still serving her. Has her joy not finished you yet?" Nneka would say whenever Amarachi visited her in secret. "What do you want me to do?" Amarachi would whisper. "Let her feel what it means to lose." The plan was born in silence, carefully, step by step, and Amarachi waited. Then came the one-year Thanksgiving crusade, a big event. People from nearby villages gathered. The air was filled with music, prayers, and dancing. Ngozi was excited. She dressed Ifeanyi in his finest white lace. Chika too was full of joy. "Today, we thank God properly," he said, holding his wife. Amarachi smiled as she helped tie Ngozi's wrapper. "You look beautiful, sister," she said. Ngozi smiled. "I'm happy, Amarachi. God has been good to me." Amarachi nodded, but her heart was dark. That night, at the crusade ground, people filled the place with praise. Ngozi danced, sang, and sat down to rest, rocking Ifeanyi gently. She looked at Amarachi. "Please hold him for me. I want to pray." Amarachi took the child, her hands steady. Later in the night, after hours of prayers, Ngozi lay down beside Amarachi, pulling her child close to her chest. But sleep came over her, deep, peaceful sleep. Amarachi lay beside her, her eyes wide open, heart pounding. She waited. Minutes passed. Then slowly she sat up, looked around. Everyone was focused on the preacher. Ngozi was still asleep. She picked Ifeanyi gently, step by step, moved through the crowd. Her heart beat louder than the drums. Outside the crusade ground, Nneka was waiting, hidden behind the trees. Amarachi handed her the child. Nneka smiled, wrapped the child gently, and disappeared into the night. Amarachi stood there for a moment, trembling. Then she turned back and walked to the crowd where Ngozi was sleeping. She lay down quietly, closed her eyes, and waited. Morning came. The sun rose slowly. Ngozi stared. She stretched her arms, reaching for her child, but her hands touched nothing. She sat up, looked beside her. There was no child, no Ifeanyi. "Amarachi," she called softly. There was no answer. She shook her. "Amarachi, where is my son?" Amarachi rubbed her eyes, pretending to wake. "I thought he was with you." Ngozi's heart stopped. "What do you mean? He was here." She jumped up, searching the ground. Her voice rose with panic. "Ifeanyi! Ifeanyi!" The crowd stunned. People gathered. Chike ran to her. "What is it?" "He's gone! Our son is gone!" The crusade ground was thrown into chaos. People searched, shouting, but Ifeanyi was gone. Ngozi tore her clothes. She rolled on the ground and screamed like a mad woman. My God, not like this, not again, not again." Her voice cracked, her eyes bugged, and her hands bled from the ground. They carried her home.
but home was no longer home. Days passed, no words, no sign, and no hope at all. Then the mockery returned. Worse than before, she couldn't even keep her child. Maybe it's a punishment. Some laughed loud enough for her to hear. Even children pointed at her as she walked. One woman said she waited 15 years for a child, only to lose him like a careless fool. Ngozi stopped eating. She stopped talking. She would sit in front of her compound, staring at nothing. One evening, she stood by the river. She thought about ending it all. God, what is left? She cried. But something stopped her. An old woman from nowhere came out and told her, "My daughter, don't do that. Whatsoever your problem may be, God in heaven will see you through." The words of encouragement touched her. She went home and sat in the dark. One night, she heard a voice outside. It was Amarachi talking and laughing. She moved closer to the window and heard her saying, "Don't worry," Amarachi said in a low voice. She still thinks he was stolen at the crusade. No one suspects anything. Ngozi's heart sank. "Are you sure the people took him far?" Another voice asked. "Yes," Amarachi replied. "Nneka told me they've left. There's no way he can be found." Ngozi burst through the door. "You!" Amarachi jumped, her eyes wide open. "You took him! So you sold my son!" Amarachi stammered. "Sister, I..." Ngozi lounged at her, screaming. The neighbors came running. Chika pulled Ngozi back. "She sold him! She sold my baby!" Ngozi cried. They called the police and Amarachi was arrested. But Ifeanyi was gone, and so was Ngozi's heart. The house was silent. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that presses heavy on your chest. Ngozi sat in the same spot by the window, where she used to rock Ifeanyi to sleep. Her hands rested on her lap, empty now. Her eyes stared at the small chair he once played with. Chika walked in, but she didn't move. "Food is ready," he said gently. Ngozi shook her head. Days had passed since Amarachi was taken away, but the time meant nothing anymore. The truth was out, but the wound stayed fresh. Sometimes, truth is not enough to heal. That night, Ngozi sat alone in the dark, thinking out loud. Why me? What did I do wrong? I never believed that my only cousin I cared for, treated like my own sister, would have the mind to treat me in such a wicked way. Oh Lord, why me? But the answers didn't come. Instead, she remembered her prayers. The night she cried for a child, the promise she reminded God about. Her knees had bled that day, her soul waited, and now he was gone. She stood up and slowly walked to her son's room. Everything was still there. The clothes, the small shoes, the wooden rattle Chike had carved. She picked it up. Her hands trembled, her knees buckled, and she fell to the floor, and she wept. But this time the tears were different. Not the tears of begging, but the tears of knowing. She cried until her chest ached, and then she sat still. And for the first time since it happened, she spoke. God, I don't know why, but I know you. She wiped her eyes. If this is the end of my joy, teach me to still live. The next morning, she rose up before the sun. She tied her wrapper, swept the compound, and boiled water. Chike watched her in silence. You must eat, she said softly, and he nodded. There was no joy, but there was life, and they had to leave. Week passed. People still whispered, some in pity, some still mocked, but Ngozi no longer listened to them. She had walked through fire and there was nothing left to burn. Amarachi's trials came quickly. The village was filled with talk. Some were angry, others were shocked, but Ngozi didn't attend the court hearing. She didn't need to. The law would take care of Amarachi. Her heart was done with her. Instead, she sat under the big tree by the market, watching women pass by. A young girl approached, carrying her child on her back, struggling with a basket. Ngozi stood up and helped her. Thank you, ma, the girl said. Ngozi smiled faintly. Take care of him very well. The child is a gift. Not everyone can keep theirs. As months passed, Ngozi changed. She no longer wore bright clothes. She no longer sang loudly, but she spoke softly and wisely. Women came to her for advice, not just about children but about life, and she told them her story, not to gain pity but to teach them. Not everyone close to you means well, she would say. Sometimes the people who smile with you are the ones who hold the knife. Ngozi taught them to be watchful, to love but with their eyes open, to pray but also be on guard. And slowly, the hole in her heart stopped bleeding. It didn't close, but it stopped hurting. One evening, as she sat outside, Chika joined her. "It's been 1 year," he said. She nodded. "I know. Do you still believe?" She looked at the sky, the stars appearing slowly. "I believe in God, not in promises, not in miracles, just in God." Chika took her hand. "We are still here, my love." She smiled just a little and replied, "Yes, and that is enough." Years passed. Ngozi never had another child, but she was a mother to many. She helped women in the village with their own burdens. She became a shelter, a light. Her pain became her power. And as for Amarachi, she remained in prison. Her letters went unread and her name forgotten. The moral lesson of this story reminds us that some wounds don't close, some questions don't get answers, but life goes on. And sometimes the greatest wisdom is to live even when you've lost. Ngozi learned that joy is a gift, but strength is a choice, and she chose to be strong.